Okay. For the people at Wake Forest and the Oak Ridge, Norma should email to you the answer sheet sometime today. Now, I don't know when she will do it because I gave her, maybe early in the morning, say 8:30. The makeup class tomorrow, we will have a makeup class on every Thursday. And the only time I could find a room with a TV camera, and so they can tape it, is tomorrow at 5:30. I could not find one at 4 o'clock. There are several rooms there are several rooms on campus, but that's what they told me. This is the only one. Take it or leave it. Okay, so I don't have a choice. So I took it.
Dr. Batra?
Yes.
Will the lecture just be taped or will it be broadcast as well?
Oh, I think they are only taped, and they will put it on the internet probably the next day.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm afraid I don't think they are broadcast live.
They will be taped though?
Yes.
All right, good. Side class.
Yeah, I think they will be taped. If they are not taped, then I won't teach it. But I'm sure they will be taped, so that's not an issue. But I cannot guarantee that they will be on the internet on Friday morning, because I do not control that part. Yes, please.
In the past, it takes them 2 days to get them online, just looking at when the lectures for this class show up.
Okay, so it probably will be done on Monday then, right? Well, this is not very nice.
Dr. Batra?
Yes?
So since we can't watch the lectures live, we won't be able to watch Friday's lecture until after, or Thursday's lecture until after Friday's class.
That's what I'm worried about too, because it doesn't look right that you should not be able. Oh boy. I'm thinking, what is an easy way out? I'm sorry?
You might be able to speak to the people doing this.
Yeah.
Tell them a reason, and maybe they can do it faster.
Okay, I will talk to them and see if they can put it on the internet on Friday morning rather than wait for a couple of days. Okay, the other thing is, do you want me to go over the test or you are comfortable with it? Most of you did well. I think the lowest score, if I remember right, is 55 and the highest is 100, and several of you have in 90s. And I think that's all I can say, right? That's all I remember offhand. And Mr. Lowe, he graded the papers. So if you have any question about the grading, please see him. Also, I need the question paper back. Only the question paper. I do not need your answer sheets. And for Wake Forest people, I already took off the question paper. The reason being, I might use some of these questions again, possibly in your test too. And if I teach the class next year, then very likely I will use the same questions. Yes?
How are we going to have time to go over which questions we got wrong if we don't know what the questions are?
Oh, I can go over the answers now, if you like.
I don't really think that's good enough.
Pardon? Oh, you want to keep the?
Yeah, I mean.
So long as you don't make a copy, it's okay. But if you make a copy, then I'm in trouble. Well, in trouble in the sense, nothing will happen to me physically. So what will happen is, like, in future, people will get 100 out of 100. So that's the only risk I have.
Is there any way that we could get a copy so that we can look at it while we're looking at our answers? Because it's going to be kind of hard for us to see what we did wrong if we can't see the question while we're going over our tests.
That's a good
could you
point.
email Dr. Stitzel one and then he could collect them from us?
I think he has the email. He has a PDF file. I
So
don't know
could
whether
we Could we get a
But-
copy from him just to go over our tests and then give them back to him?
Well, then I may as well send you the PDF file.
Okay.
I have the PDF file. I think Mr. Kunz has a PDF file too, even though I don't see him today. Maybe they
Oh,
okay.
I am
Oh,
here.
you
I
are-
can see you and hear you.
Oh, now I see you, yeah.
Okay.
I guess I can see only one of the two. I don't know why. Usually it used to be a split screen, but the person who helped, oh, no, yeah, now I can see both. It's good. So I guess you guys have some control over there. Okay, so I will email to Wake Forest people the PDF file of the test, and the remaining students, unless you return to me the exam on Friday, your grade will not be in the book. So, and I trust you, you will not make a copy. So, now do you want me to go over the test, or you're okay? How many of you think I should go? How many of you suggest I should go over the test? None of you. Okay. So let's, and the second thing, test 2, second test. I think some of you are confused whether there will be 10 more tests. There is only one more test and a final. Final I do not control. I think it's on December 17th, I believe, in the like at 4:30 or some strange time, 4:30 p.m. So it's not very strange time. And second test, this is a Tuesday. This is not a regular class period. So then we don't have to make one class. December 2nd is the Tuesday after Thanksgiving. So you will come back after Thanksgiving on Monday. That's December 1st. So December 2nd is the Tuesday, and I will find a room where we can have the test, and the test is at 5:30 p.m. So there is enough notice now, like you have 1 month advance information so that you can adjust your schedules. And if you have a class at that time, then please see me and I will give you a makeup test. Only if you have a class. Or if there's an emergency situation. I mean, that can happen none of us can foresee between now and then if there's an emergency. But otherwise, it will be at 5:30. For Wake Forest and Mr. Kunz, they can schedule themselves outside the class period. So I will just send them a PDF file and we'll go from there. Okay, anything else on your minds before we continue with where we were? Okay, so if none, let's start with what we were doing. So basically what we were doing is following Cauchy, and Cauchy suggested or proposed that we work in the present configuration. That's because F equal to MA is applicable now. Present resultant force equals mass times present acceleration. So we are in the present configuration. We are in the current configuration. And we wrote the Newton's second law of motion for a continuum as rate of change of linear momentum equals the resultant force. And in continuum mechanics, in classical continuum mechanics, we have two types of forces. One is a body force, that's between bodies that are not touching each other. They may or may not be touching each other. So like gravity, you may or may not be on the ground, but you always feel gravity force. It can reduce if you are way above the ground, but it's still there. The other is the contact force. That's between two bodies that are touching each other. And the contact force is force per unit surface area, whereas the gravity or the non-contact force or the body force is usually force per unit mass or per unit volume, depending upon whether you say B or you say rho B. And we proved by looking at this pillbox applying the balance of linear momentum to the pillbox, and assuming that the force, the contact force, depends upon the orientation of the surface only through the outward normal. That's Cauchy's postulate, Cauchy's assumption. And also the Cauchy's assumption, the other one we made was that if you cut, and this is usually called Cauchy's cut principle. So if you cut a small piece in imagination, from the body, don't take a hexa and cut it, because if you cut it, all you will see is a free surface or a fresh surface, nothing else. In imagination. So then the unshaded portion, the action of the unshaded portion on the shaded portion is equivalent or equivalent to a system of forces, not forces and moments, a system of forces distributed on the contact surface. Okay, so the action of part 2 on part 1 is equivalent to a system of forces which may be tensile or compressive, or it could be tangential. They don't have to be normal to the surface. Okay, they may be normal, they may not be normal. They may be tangential, they may not be tangential. So the direction is arbitrary. At this time, we do not know the magnitude as well as the direction of these forces. All we know is there are forces, period. But their direction and magnitude is not known. And that's really the whole. I mean, if it were known, then we won't need to have a class. The problem is we don't know it, and that's why you and I spend our lifetimes in finding those. Okay, so if we take this pillbox and apply the balance of linear momentum to it and use the mean value theorem, what we found was that f is an odd function of n. So if you change the direction of n, like make n to minus n or replace n by minus n, then the direction of f is changed. And which is roughly speaking Newton's third law of motion. Action and reaction are equal and opposite at a point. Now this is point-wise, not global. We are not saying the resultant forces are equal and opposite. What we are saying is the force per unit area at each point is equal and opposite. Now we will take this body we are talking about. So this point P, that's where we are interested in finding things. And this is in the present configuration. So if you like, you may want to use P prime. It's up to you. This is present configuration. We are in the current configuration. At this, we are watching or looking at what is happening now. So we have this coordinate axis, say x1, x2, x3, and now the shape of the body, that piece we cut, we are going to take that in the form of a tetrahedron. So the piece is one vertex. So let's say this is A, B, and C. So our body is now the tetrahedron PABC. We have the tetrahedron PABC. Okay. So the vertices of this tetrahedron, 4 vertices are points P, A, B, and C. Okay. Let's assume that the area of ABC, this face ABC, its area is say A, script A, so that you don't confuse the point A with the area. So this is script A. And let's say the normal to this surface is N. It's an outward unit normal. The normal to this surface is N. And now N, of course, has components N1 I plus N2J plus N3K, where I, J, K are the unit vectors along x1, x2, and x3 axis, or I can write n1 e1 plus n2 e2 plus n3 e3. Oh, if I put tildes, then I don't have to put hats. I should not put both tilde and hats. So e1, e2, e3 are unit vectors. Okay, now who will tell me what is the area of face PAB? Area of face PAB. So this tetrahedron has 4 faces. We assume that the area of the inclined face ABC is script A. The normal to the face ABC, the outward normal to the face ABC is n. Unit outward normal is n. So what will be the area of the face PAB? Is my question making sense? Yes.
It's 1/2 the the uninormal vector squared twice, so it's just 1/2 because you have A and B are both unitoid.
No, A and we do not know the lengths of A and B. We do not know the lengths of PA and we do not know the length of PB. Yes, Josh?
Is it script A times N2?
Very good. It is script A times N2. So it's the projection of ABC on PAB. It's the projection of the inclined triangle ABC on the plane x1, x3. And that projection is the area, which is A, times the component of n perpendicular to x1, x3. So that's N2. And similarly, PAC will be A times N1 and PBC will be A times N3. So there's a purpose for doing this, because what we are going to do now is we are going to write the balance of linear momentum. Oh, I did not use that word before, so I will explain what I mean. So this rate of change of linear momentum that we talked about here, so that's rho dv. Rho dv is the mass times velocity per part p. So that's the rate of change of linear momentum equals the force. So that's the body force part p plus the contact force. So that's F dA on the boundaries. So it has several names. One is, of course, Newton's second law of motion. The other is Cauchy's law of motion. And if you look at it as the rate of change of linear momentum equals the resultant force, then we can also say that this is the balance of linear momentum. This is balance of linear momentum. So what we are saying is that the rate of change of linear momentum equals the net force acting on the body. Now some books will use the word, instead of balance, they will use conservation of linear momentum. The rest is like, instead of using the word balance, they will say conservation of linear momentum. Also, some books may say only equation of motion. Some book might say governing equations. So all of these will come out to be same. This is an integral form. This is for the entire body. Soon we will derive it at a point. Okay, so that will come in a little while. Also, we showed last time that this thing is the same as rho v dot dv. We proved that we can take the derivative, time derivative inside the integral sign, and it is only velocity is differentiated, not anything else. And as one of you pointed out correctly, the mass is conserved. So we did use the fact that the conservation of mass holds. See, we said conservation of mass. Okay. So in the same spirit, we say conservation of linear momentum. So when we say conservation of mass, it's in the same spirit we are saying conservation of linear momentum. Okay, now let's apply this to our tetrahedron. So let's apply this balance of linear momentum or Cauchy's law of motion to this tetrahedron. So the shape P, the part P of the body, is a tetrahedron now. So if I apply it, so the term on the left hand side, I guess I can't have my cake and eat it too. So because of the screens, I have to have. Okay, so let's write the left hand side. So what is this thing equal to then? Rho v dot bv for this tetrahedron. So that means again we are going to use the mean value theorem. Mean value theorem of calculus. That means you will evaluate the integrand at some point in this tetrahedron. We cannot find out beforehand which that point is. The theorem only says there exists a point in the tetrahedron such that if you evaluate this integrand at that point, say star, and multiply with the volume of this tetrahedron, then the two are equal. The mean value theorem does not give you the exact location of the point. All it tells you is there is a point, and that's all we need to know. There is a point in this tetrahedron. It could be on the surface. Okay, now what about the right hand side? Again, rho b dv. We do the same thing. There exists a point, and this point may not be the same as the previous one. So let's put double stars on it, because this point may not be the same as the previous point. And again, the volume of the tetrahedron. Mean value theorem. Is it okay? Now comes the other part. So now comes the part where we have f dA, and this is on the boundaries. Remember, f is a function of x and n. So let's integrate over each face. So if we integrate on face, first of all, how many integrals will be there? Remember, how many faces are on the boundaries of this tetrahedron? How many faces are on the boundary of this tetrahedron? Or how many faces make up the boundary of this tetrahedron? So the number is between 1 and infinity. So what is the number? I think, Pierce, you said something. 4. So there are 4 faces. Yeah. So we have to integrate this on each face. So if we integrate on face, say ABC, so we evaluate f at some point on face ABC. Again, I do not know the point. So there is some point on face ABC, let's call it, say, hat. The outward normal is fixed everywhere, so that is n, and with the area of that face. Right? Mean value theorem. You evaluate the function at some point on the surface and multiply by the area. Plus, now PAB. What is the outward normal to PAB? Outward unit normal to PAB. Jessica? Outward unit normal to face PAB. Yes, bottom one, right. Okay, so it's negative E2. It's negative E2. So plus F X, it's a double hat, because we don't know, this point is different. Minus E2, A, and the face, and the area of that face is A times N2. So now let's go to face PBC. Face PBC. So what is the outward normal to face PBC? Outward unit normal to face PBC. Carry? At Wake Forest?
Minus N3. Or E3, sorry.
E3, good. So that's F, X, another, say triple hat, minus E3, and the area of that face is A times N3. Plus, now we are on face PAC, and Mr. Kunz. So what is the outward normal to PAC? Outward unit normal.
Okay, it will be negative E1.
Good. So it's negative E1. So it's F, some X. We are tired of putting three hats. Let's put bar on it. Is some point on the surface. Minus E1 A times N1. Bless you. So let's write now the balance of linear momentum then for this tetrahedron. So what we have is, on the left hand side, we have rho, V dot is acceleration, times the evaluated at some point star, times the volume, equals rho times body force, evaluated at some point, maybe it's different point, times volume, plus these four integrals, plus F X hat N A plus F X double hat. And also, we just learned that F of minus N is equal to minus of Fn. So I can make this minus and take away that plus gone. So it's F of E2 A N2 minus F of X some other point E3 A N3 minus F X bar E1 A N1. So we have used the mean value theorem on each term. And incidentally, this is Cauchy's original argument, original reasoning. So it's 200 years old stuff. Nowadays, you can have a better, more sophisticated reasoning, and probably you don't have to write as much as we are writing. But this is what this is how Cauchy derived. Okay, now let's divide by area. So let's divide by area on both sides. So A cancels. So let's divide by area. Now if this tetrahedron shrinks to a point, what will happen to V over A? So V is proportional to length, a typical length, like if you take the length of an edge, say epsilon, then V is proportional to epsilon cube. And A is proportional to epsilon square. So V over A will become of the order of epsilon. Volume is proportional to the length cube. Area is proportional to the length square. So volume over area will be length. And as I shrink the length to 0, these terms which have V over A in them will disappear unless acceleration blows up, like goes to infinity, or the body force goes to infinity. But the body force is not infinite at any point, and the acceleration is not infinite at any point. We are assuming that. Yeah. So in the limit then, as the tetrahedron is shrunk to a point, this term goes to 0, and this one goes to 0. Does the argument make sense? And if you agree with that, then what we have is f xn. And remember now, when the tetrahedron is shrunk to a point, what will happen to x hat and x double hat and x triple hat and x bar? They will become the same thing. They will become point P. Because now tetrahedron is a point. So all of them will become point P, which is x. So that equals then f of x E1 A1, sorry, not A1, N1, f of x E1 N1 plus f of x E2 N2
and
plus
then
f of
picture. You should be reconnected.
I'm sorry? Oh, okay. I think this one should be there then. No, this is 0, that is 0. So I'm keeping this term on one side and the remaining 3 on the other side. Plus f of x E3 and 3. Oh, sorry, I guess. Is it okay now? So the contact force per unit area on that inclined plane, inclined plane has a normal n. The contact force on that inclined plane, hello? Mr. Coons?
Yes, I apologize. I'm having trouble here.
Oh, okay. So the contact force per unit area on the inclined plane with unit normal n equals the contact force per unit area on the plane with outward normal E1 times n1 plus the contact force on the surface with outward normal E2 times n2 plus the contact force per unit area on the surface with outward normal E3 times n3. So what are the surfaces with normals E1, E2 and E3? What are the surfaces? I think Jessica answered that. in the beginning. So what are the surfaces with the normals E1, E2, and E3? With unit normals E1, E2, and E3. These are coordinate planes. Okay, with the outward normal E1 is x2, x3 plane, is with the outer normal E3 is x1, x2 plane, and so on, right? So these are coordinate planes. And this, look at, this is x, 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 x everywhere. So what does this tell us? This is the fundamental result in continuum mechanics, in fluid mechanics, solid mechanics, gases. Without this, I will be without a job and you won't get a job if you want to do any engineering work. Okay, this is used everywhere in our work. Whether you are mechanical engineer, civil, electrical, makes no difference. If you want to do, in electrical, if you want to do circuit analysis, of course, you won't see any of this stuff. But as long as you want to do mechanics, continuum mechanics, you don't have a choice. This is it. This is the basic result in mechanics. Now, what does it tell us?
Force is basically resolved into its components.
No, not quite. Remember, F is the force per unit area, but this F is the same. Well, this is also force per unit area, but this does not say it is a component of this F. What it tells you is that if you know surface tractions on three mutually perpendicular planes, if you know the right hand side, if you know surface tractions on three mutually perpendicular planes, and by that I mean if you know these three, okay, I think I use the word surface tractions, which probably I have not defined. So let me say that force per unit area is also called surface traction. TRACT is also called surface traction. Is force per unit area. F is force per unit area. So if at a point X, you know surface tractions on three mutually perpendicular planes, then at the same point you can find surface traction on any plane you like. Because to find the surface traction through the point X, remember we are talking about one point X, any point X in the body, but it's the same point in all these four terms. So if we know surface tractions on three mutually perpendicular planes passing through a given point, then you can find surface tractions on any plane passing through that point. How many planes can pass through a point? Infinitely many. So it resolves the problem of finding surface tractions on infinitely many planes to finding surface tractions on three mutually perpendicular planes. The infinitely many problem has been reduced to finding tractions on three mutually perpendicular planes. I mean, you can relax that mutually perpendicular to linearly independent, but the way we derived it is three mutually perpendicular planes. So through the point X, pass three mutually perpendicular planes, and then if you know the surface tractions on them, then you know surface traction on any plane you like. As we say, as I said before, it's the most fundamental result in continuum mechanics, and that includes solids, fluids, and gases. So it's not restricted to solids only. Okay, now, so let's call this T before I call T, before I say the next thing. How many components does this F have? Now, these are the arguments, okay? So if you just look at F, how many components does it have? It's the force per unit area. How many components does a force have? 3. So we are in a 3-dimensional space. So this is it has 3 components. So this F has 3 components. This F has 3 components. This F has 3 components. There is no guarantee that, and there is no requirement that these 3 components for each F should be same, because they are acting on different planes. So if you look at this point P, this says you are on the plane whose outward normal is E1, and let's say this is E1, then this force is acting on this plane. Is the force per unit area on this plane. It does not say this force is perpendicular to the plane. All it says is it is the force per unit area on that plane. Okay? Now I can resolve that force into one perpendicular to the plane and tangential to the plane. So I can resolve this force, which is into 3 components. So F1, this is x E1 times E1 plus F2 x E1 E2 plus F3 x E1 E3. So I can resolve that F into 3 components. Does it make sense? So the first component F1, in which direction is it acting? Remember, we are on the shaded plane. So we are in the x2, x3 plane. The outward normal is E1. So in which direction is F1 pointing? Is my question making sense? What I'm saying is, what is the direction of this? Actually, maybe I should say, what is the direction of this quantity, vector? F(E1). F1(E1), what is the direction of F1(E1)? E1, right? So that's normal to the plane. So it's the normal force per unit area. What do we call that? Normal stress. This is the normal force. This is present force, present normal force per unit present area. What about this one then? This is pointing in the 2 direction, which is in the plane, tangent to the plane. So that's it, what we call shear stress or tangential stress. And similarly, this is pointing in the 3 direction. Again, is force per unit area, and we call that shear stress. So this is shear stress in the 3 direction, that's shear stress in the 2 direction, and that's normal stress to the plane. And this was plane perpendicular to, this was the plane in the x1, x2 coordinate plane, or this is the plane whose outward normal is E1. I think I had other, yeah. So what about this plane, the one in the green color. So what is the outward normal to? Oh, I did not show you coordinate system. So this is say x2 and x3. So what is the outward normal to this plane in the green color? So E2 or x2. So that will give us, so this f, components of this f will give us the normal and tangential stresses on this plane. They are not same. We did not say they are same. But they are acting. This is a different plane, but it's passing through the same point. And then we have this third plane. The normal to this is E3. So that is the components of this one. So if you know the normal and tangential stresses on three mutually perpendicular planes, then you can find this vector f or surface traction on any plane you like, passing through the same point. So this, to make, now let's use our index notation. So because we have, that's one thing we learned, so let's use it. So I'm going to write I component of both sides. Oh, sorry. I think I, just 2-3 more minutes, please. I noticed that is, so I'm getting into my bad habit of staying over time. So let's write ith component on both sides. So I'm writing ith component on both sides. Is it okay? So that's, but now we realize that I have one here, 2 here, 2 here, and 3 and 3. So I can use summation convention. So instead of struggling to write all these equations longhand, I can just write it as x, ej, and j. And this quantity we are going to denote by Tij. And this is the last sentence I will say today. And this Tij is called Cauchy stress tensor. So this Tij is called Cauchy stress tensor. So I will pick it up from here on Friday. Oh, tomorrow. Tomorrow we meet at 5:30 in Boris Hall, 121. It's 123A. And if I cannot tape the lectures, I will send you an email. If the lectures will not be taped, then we will not meet, and I will send you an email. So unless you hear from me, so you want to wait till next Thursday? It's up. See, if we start tomorrow, then I can make up the classes, because there are only like 4 or 5 Thursdays left. So we will meet tomorrow if that's okay with you. So unless you hear from me, we will meet tomorrow. Yeah, I mean, if you want to keep, okay. So all yeah.